Welcome to From Betrayal to Breakthrough. I'm Dr. Debi Silber, and today's guest is Gabriella Martinelli. Gabriella is a certified divorce financial analyst and founder of Ever After Wealth. With 21 years of experience in divorce finance, including 16 working alongside top attorneys, Gabriella helps individuals and professionals navigate the financial complexities of divorce with clarity and confidence. She makes complex financial topics easy to understand, offering real-world strategies that empower listeners to take control of their financial future. Betrayal on its own is deeply painful, but when it's paired with divorce, and even worse, financial infidelity, the emotional and financial fallout can be overwhelming. Today, I'm joined by financial strategist Gabriella Martinelli, who has spent 20 years helping clients navigate the financial side of divorce, especially when trust has been broken. We're talking about how to spot the signs of financial infidelity, why anger-driven decisions can sabotage your future, and the steps you need to take now to protect your money and your next chapter. Here we go. Okay, everybody, I am here with Gabriella Martinelli, and we are talking about finances, and particularly finances during divorce and financial infidelity and everything having to do with finances. So welcome, Gabriella.
Hi, Dr. Debi. I'm so happy to be here and excited for having this conversation. I think is needed.
Unfortunately, yes. And you know, the reason why I thought it would be so great to have this conversation is because when someone, I mean, being betrayed is hard enough, and all of the emotions and the physical, mental, and emotional symptoms of post-betrayal syndrome and everything we're working through, we all have to deal with. And then on top of that, if someone is navigating a divorce, then it's the all of these extra circumstances and financial things that it's like, who's got the head to even think about it? So can you just get us started with when someone comes to you, like they're probably all over the place, just like sort of how I hear myself sounding right now. How do you start with them? What happens?
So yes, all of that you said is correct. And the problem is that when you're going through this process, even if there's no betrayal, divorce is already one of the most stressful life transitions anyone could go through during life, right? And one of the biggest part of this transition is money, is the finances, right? I always tell my clients, divorce is not just about the legal, right? There's this tendency to say, oh, somebody's going through a divorce. Oh, you have to call an attorney, right? Okay, yes, it's a legal part, right? You're untangling legally from this person. However, the finances are such a big part of this, okay? And you are literally breaking a contract. That's how I position it to my clients. You're literally breaking a contract. So we need to see what is part of this contract, how we're going to do a clean break, so everyone is in the same footing when it comes financially, because this will affect you the rest of your life. But if you don't understand your finances and you know how to make or have the tools to make the best decisions, you simply can. Now, to all of that, we add the stress of letting go of one life, to having to create a new life. Nobody wants to deal with that. The process is stressful and overwhelming, just simply because the process is not really the best process for someone that is going through an emotional situation while having to untangle finances and legalities of being married to someone. And then we have the betrayal. And honestly, I think that actually makes it 100 times more complicated, because the emotions you're feeling are not even about losing a partner, losing the life and the goals. You're dealing with the fact that you were lied to. You literally were lied to by the one person that you were supposed to trust the most, which you did probably trust them. And then that means almost nothing to them. And I don't like to get into the why they cheated or they didn't cheat. If it was a betrayal with an affair, a fair partner, is literally the fact that something was not working and they went the one route and you didn't. So you feel like that it makes it even worse. And then actually I see a lot of financial infidelity, and a lot of people I don't know if it's worse or not from a feelings point of view, But the reality of it is like financial infidelity affects your life, the rest of your life as well, because we're going from cases where the money is being hidden somewhere else and you don't know it existed. The money is spent on things that you don't know is being spent. You think they're savings and they're not there. Or the money is given to somebody else, right? Once we have an affair with an affair partner, there's a lot of money that belongs to the marriage that is being spent on this third party while they are committing this betrayal, right? So I usually try to get my clients to explain to me what they are feeling. I think the feelings, you can't remove them from the financial decisions. You need to acknowledge them. We need to talk through them. And in my case, I try to explain to them why it could be not a good idea to let those emotions make these decisions for them. Because if you're making decisions from an anger point of view, is like, oh, I want him to pay. I want her
Or
to
her,
pay.
or her. Yep.
Right, her or him. I want her to pay. I want him to pay.
Mm-hmm.
Well, okay, I understand that part, but is that decision going to help you in the long run? Because again, you're going to go through this process. You're going to heal, hopefully, from this. How are you going to be on the other side if when you find out that those decisions you made were about this anger and actually are not helping you? They're
Yeah.
not really decisions that you could live with or in a good way, if you will, or have the life you deserve.
Right. And I can see how anger would be the main emotion that people bring to this type of conversation, where they feel they've been so duped and so blindsided and so hurt. And of course, the hurt is behind the anger. And so the anger is the I'll show you. And now, and then to find out, where has this money gone? If I tell you how many stories I have heard from members within the PBT Institute of, there went the kids' college funds and
Oh my
or
God.
right,
Yes.
or just mortgage payments and all these things that, or they bought another apartment or house or something for the affair part. I mean, it's infuriating, and you could see the anguish and all of this. So how does then somebody approach a conversation and not lead with the anger?
Yeah, it's very hard because the anger is always also is the based on the pain and also based on the guilt they feel for not seeing it. I should have seen it. I should have known this. And I always tell my clients, no, you should not. You trusted your partner to do what was right the way that you were doing it. And for example, in the financial betrayal, a lot of this wives or husbands is like, well, she was in charge of the finances. I was doing this other thing. He was in charge of this. I didn't. And I said, and that is the right way, right? You had a partner. You guys had different roles in this part of this team, and you were okay to trust. So it's not your fault. You should not feel that you should have known that something was wrong because you did the right thing. You're not the one that did the wrong thing. And all of this, you have to bring it back, because my biggest issue is that once the mistrust is there, right? You're going through a divorce. Let's pretend there's no betrayal. You're not trusting that person you're divorcing already. It's just because you're going through a divorce. Now, if you have betrayal, that makes it 10 times harder for you to trust a document. See, I based all of what I do with my clients in data. Look at documents, look at statements, tracing, spending is there. It's very clear to me because it's on paper. You can't fake it. But it's very hard for them sometimes to even believe the data, right? Because the betrayal is so engraved in them. The pain and the anger is so bad. They can't believe it. They literally don't believe it. I would work with a lady some time ago, and it was very interesting because she was convinced that he has hidden all this money from her. She didn't know what was happening. He's taking money from the retirement accounts. He's doing all this because something she saw a glimpse or something, right? And then she's feeling like she was betrayed. As we start digging, yes, there was some of that. There was cash leaving the accounts. You can't trace cash, unfortunately. So you don't know where that is. So I did all the work with her. We go through accounts and the retirement accounts where the money was going. The interesting part about this was like I did find some financial infidelity in the sense that there was some money going somewhere that we couldn't really trace because it was like cash that was taken from accounts. You can't trace it, so we didn't know. So I was able to put a number, if you will, on that particular amount of money. The other part that she obviously believed that there was more, there wasn't. I traced back 10 years of accounts. I found all the money. Yes, the money was taken from the retirement accounts. It was put in their accounts, but it was spent by both of them. The problem is that she had no idea. So in her mind, oh, wow, okay, the money was in this account and now it's gone. And of course, nobody is tracing money, right? That's not what anyone does in real life. I do it because is what I do for a living. And I found it, and she still wouldn't believe it. And she still believed that something was still missing.
Right. I want to really harp on this for a few reasons. Number one, when a betrayal is unhealed and that trust is not rebuilt from, let's say, a previous relationship or something that happened in childhood, then what's happening is I can see how she may have gone into this sort of assuming or expecting there's going to be, I can't trust that the money will be there. I can't trust him. I can't trust this. And then sure enough, we thought the universe will prove us right. We will have confirming evidence. So just a note right there to just take a look. If it's not unhealed, it will follow you around in every single relationship that you have. That's one thing. The other thing that came to mind was that I think so many people are at such a disadvantage because they do delegate, right? Or it's say, okay, well, this is going to be your role and this is going to be mine. And then something like this happens and they were so out of the loop with the finances, they are really in the dark. And that's, a really big issue.
And that makes it even worse because you find, and it happens, for example, with a client that, yes, the wife actually was having an affair. He had no idea where the money was. And he's hit with the pain that has to do with the affair betrayal, right? It's an emotional situation. And then the money, and he has no idea what's happening. Where is the money going? What was it spent on? Did she spend any money, with him or going on trips? Because, when you're going on trips, you're spending this money. So it's almost like so catastrophic when this happens to you. And then you add the different layers, right? So you're like, okay, so they lied when they said they were going with the friend somewhere. They lied when they said they were having dinner, working late. Now they lie about the money because I need to figure out about the money. And it's so many things that keep piling up. And a lot of the times is comforting on some level to stay in that pain and that anger and not look at anything. I don't want to make decisions. I want to sit here thinking they betray me, they hurt me, I want them to pay. I don't know how, I don't know when, but I'm going to sit there and hold on to this because the pain of finding out something else is too greater. If I come in and and a lot of people tell me, I can tell they're totally torn. Do I want to work with you or not? It is not because of me or what they need. They literally need to work with me. But I will uncover potentially something that they still don't want to know. It's too fresh. It's like almost like they want to go back to not knowing. Yeah. Because the pain of knowing something else is too greater to deal while you're dealing with everything else during this time.
That's a great point. And I can see that is out of the 5 stages of from betrayal to breakthrough. That is classic stage 3. They are stuck, but there's something comforting in being stuck, and not comforting in a good way, comforting in only that it's familiar. Right. And do I risk more pain in the growth because I will learn more? So it's almost like I've settled into the amount of pain I feel like I'm able to deal with. And as horrible as it is, and as bad as this feels, I've grown used to this, and I don't know if I could tolerate more. So I could see that. I just want to address something you said before, because I say this all the time, and I love that you confirmed it, and I want to make sure everybody knows. It's not, people say, well, how did I not know? And, you're so angry at yourself that you didn't know. You weren't supposed to know, and you don't know how to think that way. And that's actually a good thing, because you don't know how to think like a betrayer. You don't know how to think like someone who lies and deceives and dupes other people and doesn't consider other people's feelings. That's not who you are. So that you didn't know, that's actually a sign for you to show you what you're made of. And to be angry at yourself during a time where you've just been, the rug has been pulled out of you, out from under you, is something you absolutely do not need. So spare yourself the extra anger and use it instead to just fuel you forward, not in a vengeful kind of way, but in a healing kind of way. But you weren't supposed to know. You don't know how to think that way. It's not your fault. Betrayal is never your fault. It is your opportunity, though, to just move through this. And when we are cracked wide open, that's where we have the greatest opportunity to truly transform. And I'm sure you've seen that in some of your experiences.
Yes, 100%. And this is why I always try to bring them back to today. Let's put on hold the pain for a moment. Let's think about what it could be the best decision for you, because you cannot avoid making the decisions, right? You're going to be in this divorce limbo for a little bit while this process is going on. The problem here is the process could go 3 months, 5 years. Like, you don't really know. It really depends on both parties, because if it depends on the courts, it will take longer potentially. So if you're able to find something, but once you get too involved or too comfortable in this pain without making the decisions or set on something, oh, I want this because this is going to hurt them, and I'm not going to do anything else unless I get this, because in my state right now, I believe that that's what's going to hurt them. It's really hurting you. And that's what I try to bring to my clients. And I don't try to minimize what you're going through from an emotional point of view. Having to survive betrayal, going through a divorce, went through one myself, is something that it's going to take time. Unfortunately, you don't have that kind of time while you're going through this divorce process. Because if you're going to court, you have deadlines. The court is going to have your own, you have to do this and this and that. And it's important that you do those things if you want to have a good outcome. But the problem is that once we're going from this point of anger and like setting what we want and we want them to pay, this is why it's deserving. You're not thinking about you. You're thinking about them. You're not thinking about what's good for you and your family. You're thinking about what's bad for them, which I understand from a feelings and emotional way why we're thinking that way. But this is why it's bad. It's because first, you're not thinking about you and what's good for you. You're spending a lot of money trying to hold on to thinking about what's bad for them rather than being proactive and trying to think about you. You will have the time to heal, but you don't want to have regrets when you're trying to heal that betrayal, regrets of what you did during the process, right? So you have to think about those things. And the other part of this, and it's very unfortunate, and it is the realities of the divorce world, right? So I work in this world for more than 22 years now. And I work on the legal side of it for 15 years. So there is this concept from the person that was betrayed that they're going to go to court and the court is going to make the other person pay. And there is almost like that belief that it's going to happen like the movie style, or the judge is going to tell them, I'm going to have my moment, I'm going to put it out there, and I'm going to feel vindicated because of what I was feeling or what they did to me they're going to get it. Like, and unfortunately, it doesn't happen that way. And that is the hardest part of this process for the individuals going through a divorce, when they're also dealing with some type of betrayal, whether it is an affair or it is a financial, which it has a little bit of both. Because the law on some levels protects somehow the person that is being betrayed, right? There's issues with support or alimony that may have the fact that somebody had an affair may have some little bit of incident in how that is approached. But that is about it. There is no aha moment. Unfortunately, the courts, the judges are not there to give some moral, condemnation or speech to the person. And I think that is the hardest part, because a lot of my clients keep pushing for, I'm going to take him to court and she's going to learn. And the judge is going to tell them, actually, the judge will not say anything. So in reality, while you go through all of that and spend all that money, you're not getting that. You
Yeah.
will not get that.
Yeah. And it's so great. I love that you're bringing that up because I think that's really what happens. First of all, there's so much fear, and fear is driving all of this
Oh,
behavior,
yes.
right? So
All
fear
of
of
it.
what will happen, what will happen to my family, what will happen to me, what will happen to what everything. So fear's
Everything.
driving it, and then the fear and the anger and the sadness, and it's this one big jumbled mess, and we're hoping to get this one big moment of vindication or something, and then it doesn't come. So I love that you're saying spend the effort where it makes the most sense, and that's on you. I say it a little bit differently,
Always.
but it's the same concept where it's if you have 100% of your energy at best case scenario, and 50, 60, 70% is spent on what are they doing, what are they thinking, whatever, you only have the remainder to deal with you. So spend it on you to heal, move yourself through stages. Out of stage 2, it's a 3, 4, and 5, where your decisions are made from clarity and strength
Right.
versus scarcity and fear. So can you give us an
Yes.
example of someone who they were infuriated, they were filled with so much anger, so much rage, and they wanted to go for something, and then you sort of spoke to them about, that's not in your best interest, and they made a different decision and it worked out for them?
So I have several of those, but there was one particular case that I came in a little later. I usually try. I would rather when someone brings me even before the attorney, because we can tackle finances much easier. But this person was actually going on this process for almost 11 months,
Mm.
and they were really set on what they wanted. In this particular case, the attorney called me and said, I don't know, I think we could go to mediation. I don't think it's in her best interest to go to trial. Can you talk to her, see if you can do something? I said, sure. We had a conversation. I talk about one of my biggest ways I work with my clients is I give them education, because if you have education, you understand the facts, you get clarity, you make the best decisions. Period. That's all it is. So she agreed to work with me, and it was a little bit. We didn't have a lot of time. They were getting ready to go to mediation, and I would never forget that from the very beginning, all she said was, "Oh, I want this." No, if he doesn't say that, I'm going this, and like constantly. And I at some point I said, okay, so I'm just going to ask you to let me do my part. I'm going to do my analysis, and then we're going to sit down and we're going to talk. I'm going to share with you my findings. I'm going to share with you some facts, and I explain certain things to you. And then we're going to go and project what you want. And I'm going to put a projection into what it's going to look like in 5, 10 years. And then from there, we can potentially send a report back to your attorney and say, yeah, this is what she wants. This is what we're doing. And during the whole process, it was this anger. I said, like, no, because he's going to say that he wants this, so I'm gonna want this house, and I'll be like, okay. And I usually tell my clients, you're not allowed to say what he wants or what he's going to say. You're not allowed to say what she's thinking or what she wants. You're not allowed to say that in my conversations. It really doesn't matter to me. Whatever you think that they're thinking, we're not going to include that in any conversations between the two of us. And I remember went through the analysis, and I had a very clear conversation that I usually have with my clients third, fourth into the meetings, third meeting, about what they want. And I try to separate, and I said, okay, if you were not dealing with this betrayal, if you were not this hurt, what is that thing that you would like to see happening in your life, or that you think that one day you can get there? And that conversations allows them to start thinking about them, because they really have to stop. And it's not optional. I always tell my clients, we're going to work. I'm not cookie cuttering anything. Things are the way they are, and we're going to push through together, because you need to find clarity. You need it. And I'm going to give it to you. So, and I remember once the shift that happened in her, because when we started talking about what she wanted, then first she realized she wanted a different property, not the property that she wanted initially, because he wanted it, because it kind of makes sense to her. So as we continue the conversations, I was able to kind of mold her and take it that way, where she was open to, maybe that's not really what we want. And again, remember, we couldn't go back to what he wants or he says or he's going to think. That's not allowed. So literally your brain has to stay on you and the numbers that I'm giving you. And it was very interesting. Met for like 2 hours. The next meeting, I sent her thinking about that. I said, okay, I want you to think more about this house or that other house or whatever. And the next meeting, I did projections and I said, okay, I'm going to show you one screen what you want. Here it is. And this is what you could potentially end up with. And how is that going to match up with that idea of yours without thinking betrayal, right? Not minimizing what you're going through, but thinking, let's pause on that hurt for a minute. So you're able to see a little clearer. And it changes. It was so interesting because super smart person. Okay. We're talking about a very smart person. These people are not, they're not smart. They just can see past the anger. They're going through all of the emotions. And then of course they have the friends and the family and social media and everybody else that is telling them things. And I remember going to mediation. We had she asked me to go to mediation with her. We were there all day. We had a good, her attorney, he was super smart too, and he understood where we were coming from. We had a great strategy. He presented it to the mediator to start. She was able to get that. She was able to get that second image of what her future could be. And I had a conversation with her the next day because mediation is emotional. And she was still feeling hurt, but she felt the hope. And she told me, she said, I was going to make a mistake. And I'm like, yes, you were, but you didn't.
Yeah.
So that is the great thing. And you did the hard work. It's hard work to go through this, make these decisions, and having to put your hurt and your anger on hold because you feel they're going to win. And you don't want them to win.
Yeah.
And it's not about winning.
It's not about yeah, I could
it's
see
not about winning.
It's not about winning, and it has nothing to do with your intelligence. It's it's true. Super smart people blindsided by something they never saw coming, and the sadness and the anger and the rage and everything that follows is so normal. But you want to think about what's in your best interest. What's like a first step? So someone they're blindsided, and here they are now. They're getting divorced. What's the first step they need to take?
They have to call me, because we need to get a hold of the finances. And this is something I talk, and I have been in several podcasts. Susan Guthrie is like a big in divorce, and we went she actually agrees, because the finances are going to be the biggest part here, and you need to tackle that as soon as possible. And it's not going to be resolved quickly because you hire me, but it's gonna help you get that guidance ahead before you make mistakes. Because first of all, you can't really do much when you're talking about finances, but you want to avoid anything to disappear. You want to avoid records to go away, and you need to know what are things to look for, which I can help you from a financial point of view, right? Then you will need an attorney, obviously, and if there's kids, is different too. So I always said, if you're dealing with this big betrayal, even if it's financial, by the way, you need emotional help that I can do. I can't give you that. I mean, I have training in communication and things of that nature, but I can't really help you heal the trauma of going through this betrayal. So I usually send them to either a therapist or start with a coach or someone that can help you manage your emotions.
I mean, if they want to move through the betrayal, hello, that's what the PBT Institute.
You have to. That's what you do. Exactly. Because you need that.
Yeah.
You need it all. And that's what I think that the key is. You need a team, especially if you're dealing with betrayal. You need to deal with someone that is going to help you break through the emotions of the betrayal, the financial portion, and the attorneys can help you with the legal. But if you don't do all of those together, it is very hard, because it's one part that is not being dealt with.
Right. It all
and it's very important to do exactly that. You do it all together, and understanding the records and where you stand is one of the main things you have to do. Like if you're talking financial betrayal, let's look at the numbers ASAP before nothing else goes missing, or money is taken, or records disappear, or bank accounts are closed. I've seen that so many times.
Yeah, I'm sure. And I always try to get into the hearts and the minds of my listeners and viewers. And I can feel some of them thinking, I don't even know where anything is. I don't even know where to start with this. For that person, what do they do?
So and I understand that, because even if they know, they're not going to remember. So when I start working with them, I start asking the right questions where they remember the answers. It is very simple. And if they are like to a point, it's like, I have no idea, I'll say, okay, give me your tax returns. You know, we're talking finances. That's what I do. I analyze the financial records and I'm telling you, tax returns give me a lot of information. That is a starting point. Then I start asking certain questions about where someone works or if they have a business or other things that I may see. And by the way, the first thing you should do is get your credit report. You should go to your credit report because there's a lot of information in your credit report. And if there is financial infidelity, I have seen spouses opening accounts on their spouse's name and they had no idea that they had a credit card, that they had a bank account. There is a HELOC on the mortgage. That there's so many things that they don't know they're happening. And unfortunately, when someone is willing to do those type of things to their spouse, they will open a credit card. That's not unusual to see that. I didn't know I had this credit card. Well, because your spouse had that credit card on your name, they're using, and is debt that is being created in your name. And whether it's viral or not, we can discuss that some other time with an attorney, but the reality is you need to identify those accounts. So I think that that's why I really can help, because I will guide them step by step without the overwhelm and the stress of not knowing. It's okay that you don't know. You don't suppose, nobody trains for this. Nobody goes, takes a class of like, what do I do if I find out that I'm being betrayed? You know, really quickly, I have a client, she came to me and she was sure the husband was having an affair. She was like, he's having an affair. I feel it. I know. I said, okay, if I can look at the finances, right? But she was a little unsure. I said, well, let's talk to an attorney. Let's see what is the next step. She hired a PI. The PI started following the husband. The husband was leaving the house every morning as if he was going to work. He was going to the golf club and spent the day there. He had been fired 6 months ago and she had no idea. And they had no more savings. And it wasn't another person. It was like he lost his job. He was totally embarrassed. He felt guilty. And instead of approach it in a conversation with their spouse, he decided to lie about the job and continue to spend their savings.
It catches up with you no matter what you do. Everybody take a deep breath. You got this. You got this. Gabriella, where do we go to learn more about you and the great work you do?
So my website, everafterwealth.com. So you can reach out to me directly through the website. You can send me a message. You can even schedule a call with me. Even if you think that you may need some kind of help, you can just shoot me a text and we can talk. I recently started my podcast, which is called Divorce and Money. And I have all little nuggets there for everyone so they know what to look for, what they should be thinking about, and what kind of documents to start gathering if you have some kind of suspicions of anything that maybe happened in your relationship. But yeah, my website, I'm on LinkedIn, Gabriella Martinelli. I am on Instagram at everafterwealth. And you can send me a direct message and I can help you. My blog has a lot of information about this as well.
Great.
And my website. So,
I want to thank you so much for your time, for your wisdom. I know this was a hard hit for a lot of people, but something that is clearly in their best interest. And I really hope they take it to heart that, you didn't see this coming, but there's a way through it. There are people that can help. So thank you so much.
100%. Okay. Thank you.
I hope today's conversation has given you both the clarity and the confidence to take control of your finances, even in the midst of betrayal and divorce. Stay in touch with Gabriella by going to everafterwealth.com, and we'll have all of her information in the show notes at thepbtinstitute.com/podcast. Here's my biggest takeaway. Remember, your decisions now will shape your future. So make them from a place of clarity, not anger, and get the support you need to do that. If you're looking for emotional and additional strategic support on your healing journey, you'll find plenty of resources at thepbtinstitute.com. Thanks for listening. Can't wait to be with you next time. And here's to your breakthrough.